So today is going to be just a brief self-inquiry practice, something you can do when you might not have as much time to do a deep meditation. But maybe you're in a place where you're feeling your mind extra loud, or maybe feeling some tightness or contraction in your body. Just those moments where we feel like we've really constricted ourselves around the separate self, where it really feels like it's me against the world, or it's me against this person or this situation, where life feels really personal. You might be able to hear the storm in the background here. It's a windy, rainy morning up in the mountains, and it's a really beautiful, tranquil energy. Tranquil and yet fierce at the same time. So we're going to kind of mirror that today in this practice of maybe you're coming to this in the moment of a storm, feeling as I hear the wind outside and I see all the trees blowing like really, really intensely, and I feel the energy of this storm. It feels a lot to me like those moments when the activity of our mind and the activity of our emotions becomes intensified. And that activity, which we could think of as the veil, and it's really not veiling anything, it's not actually hiding anything, but it seems to. So that activity, when it becomes like a storm inside of us, when we've given so much of our focus and attention to our thoughts and emotions, we kind of harden into this feeling of being separate. We become the person, the body-mind. We believe the stories in our head. And so we start to feel a level of constriction or anxiety or stress. And when those two happen in conjunction, the sensation with the story about it being about me, the separate self, that's when we create suffering, or when suffering arises. And so that's why we inquire, right? That's why we go through these practices, is to unravel or pull back those layers of illusion, those layers of activity, so we can dissolve a little bit, come back into the peace of the body, of the present moment, and unravel whatever it is that's clouding the awareness of what we really are. The storm just kind of dissolved outside the window into this really deep peace, and it's just a beautiful echo of what we're doing here today. So wherever you are, no matter what state you are entering this from, it doesn't matter. Whether it's a complete and total chaotic storm inside of you and you're feeling just so much anxiety and just the complete opposite of feeling connected to Source, or if you're coming to this from a moment of feeling deeply connected, it doesn't matter. You can use this regardless. This will meet you exactly where you're at. So go ahead and close down your eyes to begin with. This is kind of more of a contemplative meditation. So I'll be talking and guiding with my voice, guiding you into some spaces in yourself. But remember that with contemplation, the purpose is to not come up with an answer, but to go to your direct experience. And that takes practice sometimes, because oftentimes we're so used to relating to the mind and its labels of reality instead of going to our direct experience of reality. So that's why we practice. So one of the key elements in contemplation is lightheartedness, playfulness. Almost like you're approaching this with like that feeling in your chest of as if you're about to laugh or you're about to smile. Just that kind of like bubbly energy of like, it's not so serious. And I know that for many of us that may be listening to this, you may be coming into this space where you are or are in the storm, and those storms can feel so serious. So I know that it can feel a little bit uncomfortable to try to bring that lightness in, but I'm going to encourage you to just do your best. It's not a trying to be lighthearted, it's just, can I be open to allowing a little bit of lightening? And maybe that feels like an invitation to your breath. Can you invite in a little bit of lightness? You don't have to create it, you don't have to go get it or force it, but can you just allow it in? How does it feel for the breath right now to lighten? And how would it feel to invite into the body a sense of softening or melting? Just taking this for a second to yourself, maybe placing a hand on your heart. And just starting to bring the breath a little bit deeper, starting to open up the chest, bringing your shoulders back a little bit, straightening the spine, sitting up as tall as you can. How would you sit right now if you were totally confident that this moment was perfect, exactly as it is, even with any pain, even with the storm, even with whatever's happening in the mind or the body? What would it feel like to sit with confidence that this moment is perfect? Just play with it. And any resistance that might be coming up, there's no need to reject it. That resistance is totally okay. Just breathe with that resistance. Notice it. Be with it. The way that we dissolve something isn't by rejecting or forcing it or trying to fix it, but actually by moving through it and into it, being with it. So noticing in yourself right now, what is it that I might have been rejecting, pushing away as a feeling? And how can I invite it into this moment? How can I accept it, even hold it with love? So using the breath here, I want you to scan your body and find a sensation. Find some place in the body that feels like it might be a little bit tight or hot or constricted. Whatever the sensation is, just finding it. And then as if you could lean in energetically into this sensation, ever so slightly, just feeling as if you could wrap yourself, your energy, around the sensation and just witness it, just be with it, even merge with it, just holding it with that love. There is nothing to do here. There's no trying, there's no effort. It's just this simple witnessing and allowing. Starting to notice if anything shifts or moves as you just hold and be with this. The softer that you can become, the less that you can try or effort or do, the more that these things are able to shift and flow through us. So you can almost imagine your body like butter here, just melting. Seeing how open, how allowing can you become. Moving the awareness up into the space where your head is, into the mind. I want you to notice what the next thought is that arises in your mind. The very first one that comes up after I said that. Don't filter it, don't try to get somewhere. Just notice what's the first thought that arises. So with that thought, I want you to repeat that thought to yourself, whatever the words are, 3 times. This is really clinging to the thought, repeating it in your mind. Beautiful. When you're done repeating that, I want you to just watch it flow away. Coming back to that softening, coming back to that feeling of emptiness or openness in the body. From this space, and we're going to pull that thought one more time back into the mind, clinging to it, noticing what it feels like to cling to a thought. Could even notice what was the difference between how it felt to let that thought go, to let it flow away or through you, and then what does it feel now to call it back and to cling to it. So we're getting in touch with something that we're normally very unconscious of. I shouldn't say everyone is. Sometimes we are very conscious of it. For the most part, as humans, we have all these thoughts flowing throughout our day, and we are just being pulled into each one, and we're clinging to certain ones that have a charge to them. So rather than trying to get rid of our thoughts, what we're going to do here is we're going to deconstruct thought itself. This is going to be a deep alchemical process that you can keep practicing, and you'll start to notice the effect that this has on your psyche outside of meditation and just during your day as well. So if you don't still have it, cling to that thought, call it back in, and I want you to repeat it to yourself again. Whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. Just let it be repeated, whatever words came up as that thought. I want you to ask yourself right now, what is this thought made of? And I want you to notice as I ask that question, first, what happens if you answer that question with your mind? What is this thought made of? So this requires going into the memory, so having an answer that's based in the past, something that you've learned, right? You may come up with so many different answers to this, and this is unique for you. But your mind may say something like, this thought is made of words, or maybe this thought is made of brain activity. This thought is made of my past experiences or my opinions. So notice how all of these answers are also coming as another thought, as more language, as more labels. So just noticing that. Don't need to do anything with it yet, but just noticing that when you allow your mind to answer that question, it comes up with another thought. It comes up with language, and it comes up with more labels. Now, I want you to take that same question, and I want you to answer it with your direct experience. So you're not coming up with an answer of the mind. You're not going into language or labels, but you're going to your direct experience. When I ask, what is that thought made of? I want you to go into it, the actual experience of the thought. Become your own detective and keep that light, playful, curious attitude. You cannot get this wrong because there's no answer. You're just exploring, what is this thought made of? I'm going to give you a few minutes to just be with this. This is not a difficult thing that there's some, trick. It's not a trick question. There's no difficult answer to it. There is literally no answer other than your direct experience of what this thought is made of. So as you deepen into this, you're going to be having a knowing occurring for you in your internal world. Maybe this feels like kind of like a texture of knowing, or a deepening, or it may just feel frustrating at first, because often when we inquire into something that's not really an object, the mind is so used to having an objectified answer that it can kind of feel frustrated. The mind might say, this is stupid, I'm not getting anywhere, there's nothing here. The mind will most likely fight this at first, because we're inquiring into truth. And the truth is that our reality has no objects. But the mind believes that our reality is made up of objects. And so the mind wants to give you an answer with objects. The mind wants to answer that question of, what is this thought made of, with another thought, which you could even see a thought as an object to the mind. So this is a practice that I want to encourage you to do often, where whenever you have a thought, you can take any thought, then asking yourself, what is this thought made of? And then first going to your mind, noticing how the mind answers, and then leaving that and going directly to your actual experience. I can't tell you what your actual experience is or is going to be, because it's not an object. It's not something I can tell you, because that would be my mind overlaying language, memory, my own learnings onto an experience that is just what is. But what I can tell you is that when you inquire into this and you start to realize what's actually your experience of what thought is that there's a lot less there than you think. And this is actually one of the biggest keys that we can give ourselves on this path of dissolution of the separate self. Because what we've perceived as me, this focalized, or I should say localized, focal point of me, is all made up of ideas, what we've learned, all of our memories of who we've been in the world. But guess what all of that's based in? Thought. All of it is based in thought and idea. So me, the me that I feel I am, the me that you feel you are, is kind of like a web of constructs, of objects, of thoughts, ideas. And the mind can't understand this, because the mind is going to say something like, that doesn't make any sense. Obviously I have a body, obviously I'm this human, I can feel it, I'm here right now. But this is why we inquire so deeply into these things, because that is another thought. Everything is happening as the mind of God, the mind of the Creator, projecting itself into this illusion of duality. So it feels very real that we have a body and that we're in form, and we are, but we're also not. And that's not something that will make sense to our mind. So the mind will fight this, allow it to keep coming up with whatever arguments it might have. But as those arguments come up, bring that back into the inquiry, because those assumptions that we've got it figured out, and I know I'm a human, and I know I'm this separate self, those are all just assumptions that we've built our entire world around. And when we start to inquire into those seemingly obvious knowings of the mind, we start to see that there's actually not much there. And that's when we begin to dance as love itself. That's when we begin to feel our true essence starting to emanate. So play with this as much as you want in your reality. Whenever you just feel like bringing up a thought, if we base our entire lives on these wisps of smoke in our mind, don't you think it's pretty important to inquire into what they're actually made of? And not just what we think they're made of, which is based on the past, which is based on what we've learned from other people, right? Language, labels. None of that is actually what is in our reality. It's just what we've learned mentally. So we're defining our whole life based on what we've learned from others outside of ourselves. But if we went to our direct experience before we had any labels of it, any language to describe it, any idea of what objects even were, what would thought be before language, before learning? What would your experience of thought be if you had never learned to speak language? And if you had never learned to speak language, can you imagine what life would be like? Because would there be a sense of past or future without language? Would you have a sense of me without language? Because if you'd never been given a label, if you've never been given a name, if you've never learned that you were separate from everything else that you were experiencing, if there was no me and no other, how would you be experiencing life now? I can tell you one thing across the board is that we would all be experiencing it as sensation, a direct experience. So this is the aim of this space when we inquire, is that we're so taught to go to our mind, to go to thought, to answer everything. But thought is based in our assumptions, in our learnings from the past. It's not about what's actually here and now. And if you had no access to past memory or language or anything learned, if you were so present with what is, you'd realize that nothing has an edge, that that's all a projection of our minds onto reality. So as we all do this, as we inquire deeper, all those edges that we feel as separating us begin to slowly dissolve. We're not trying to get somewhere, we're just inquiring because we're realizing that what is already here is ready to be looked at in a new way, is ready to be known in a new way. But it's not that we're getting somewhere different. We're not getting somewhere in the future through self-inquiry. We're recognizing what's here now and what's always here now. So if the mind offers up anything that says, oh, it feels so far away, I still feel so separate, I still feel so divided, realize that that is all thought. And when that thought comes up, go directly into inquiring, what is this thought made of? You stop basing your life so much on thought when you realize from your direct experience that thought is not made of anything. It's energy overlaid with language, arising, disappearing, arising, disappearing. And then to take this a layer deeper, if you desire to, you can ask, who is the one that is thinking this thought? Or where did this thought come from? Trying to find its origin. With this practice, you're not trying to find something. You're trying, or maybe I shouldn't say trying, but you're going to the no thing, the emptiness, the void, the unknown. This is where you meet the immortal edge, where you merge and dissolve into yourself. So when you come up with nothing as an answer, that's the answer that your soul is looking for. Let that emptiness be a sign that you're exactly where you're meant to be. The mind might perceive that as boring or not entertaining enough because we've been so conditioned into dopamine spikes and highs and lows and drama and, overactive nervous system. But finding no thing, finding emptiness is actually your essence. It's this vast field of peace. And And the more that we visit this, the more that we inquire into this, the more it begins to permeate our reality. The more we become the calm, the eye of the storm. That life can rage and swirl and move around us, and we are that peace beneath it all. The peace that knows that the storm will pass, just like every other thought, because it's made of nothing and everything, arising and falling just like thought. That's all our emotions and our thoughts are, is just weather patterns within God's mind. We are the weather of God. When we cling to the weather patterns that move through God's sky, we localize as a separate self. When there's a rainstorm, again and again and again, and a lot of wind, torrential downpours, it's so distracting sometimes for the attention that we can cling to it. I feel like, oh no, I need to get rid of this. Not realizing that we are the sky, that we are the entirety, and that storm will pass so easily when we don't cling. When we simply watch it arise and fall away. And that we are what is stable. You are what is unchanging beneath all activity, beneath all thought. Just like the ocean, the deep, deep, vast ocean, imagining yourself at the very bottom. With all those waves and storms happening on the surface, but that you are that deep peace of the ocean itself. It doesn't matter to the ocean if the storm lasts or fades away quickly. It just is. You just are. So don't be afraid of your thoughts. Don't be afraid of your emotions. Be with them. Allow them. Witness them. Don't try to reject or force them away. Don't cling to them. Just watch them with curiosity as they arise and fall. And then they feel intense. Inquire deeper. What is this made of? What is really here from my direct experience? And let that carry you into your own peace.